The city of Dublin hummed with quiet energy as Tiger moved through the narrow streets, blending seamlessly into the crowd. He wasn't just another tourist admiring the architecture. He was on a mission. His target, an esteemed scientist suspected of leaking sensitive information. His orders: observe, report, and, if necessary, eliminate. Tiger had done this 100 times before. Missions came and went. He never got personally involved. But as he watched the scientist from a distance, his attention kept drifting towards someone else, the assistant. She moved with quiet confidence, her sharp eyes constantly scanning the room as if she had secrets of her own. Her name was Zoya. On paper, she was an academic, assisting in advanced research. But Tiger had learned to trust his instincts, and something about her felt off. He had to get closer. Over the next few days, he positioned himself strategically at the library, the cafe, the university courtyard, always near her, always watching. It wasn't long before they spoke. She was sharp, witty, and surprisingly guarded. Their conversation started casually, but every interaction left Tiger wanting to know more. Then something unexpected happened. One evening, as he tailed the scientist, he noticed another group watching him too. Unfamiliar men, moving with purpose. Assassins, maybe. He wasn't the only one interested in this research. His orders were clear: avoid unnecessary interactions. But when the scientist stepped outside, the men followed. Tiger's instincts kicked in. He moved fast, intercepting the group before they could make their move. A swift fight ensued, silent, precise, deadly. Within seconds, the men lay unconscious. Before he could disappear into the night, he heard a voice. That was impressive. He turned sharply. Zoya stood there, eyes locked onto his. She had seen everything. And yet, there was no fear in her expression, only curiosity. Tiger hesitated. In his world, witnesses were liabilities. But something told him Zoya was not just a bystander. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady. He gave her the only answer that felt right. A man looking for answers. She held his gaze for a long moment before nodding. "Then I hope you find them." With that, she walked away, disappearing into the Dublin night. Tiger stood still, watching her vanish. For the first time in years, he felt something stir within him, an emotion he couldn't name. A part of him wanted to follow her. Another part warned him not to. But deep down, he already knew. This mission was different. And Zoya was the reason why. Tiger found himself drawn to Zoya in ways he couldn't explain. Their conversations had started as calculated moves, a way to stay close to his target, but they had evolved into something else. Something dangerous. She was different from anyone he had ever met. Her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she spoke about the world, the quiet strength beneath her words, it all felt too real. But he wasn't a man who could afford real connections. Still, he kept coming back. In the library, they debated history. In the cafe, they spoke about dreams. At the university, they exchanged glances that lingered just a second too long. And in all of it, Tiger felt something shifting inside him. Yet he wasn't careless. He had spent years mastering the art of observation, and something didn't add up about Zoya. Her background was too clean, her presence too convenient. She was supposed to be just an assistant, yet her instincts were sharp, her reactions too precise. One evening, as they walked along the quiet riverbank, she asked, "Do you ever wonder what life would be like if we weren't bound by duty?" Tiger glanced at her. "Duty gives us purpose." She shook her head. "Duty cages us." For the first time, he had no answer. That night, he dug deeper into Zoya's past. What he found sent a chill down his spine. Her records were falsified. Her identity, a carefully constructed lie. But before he could process it, his phone buzzed. "New orders. The assistant is a threat. Eliminate if necessary." Tiger stared at the message, his chest tightening. The next day, he met Zoya as if nothing had changed. But as she smiled at him, something inside him cracked. Was it all a game? A carefully played act? And if it was, why did it feel so real? Before he could decide what to do, the cafe door burst open. 3 men stormed in, guns concealed but movements precise. They weren't ordinary attackers, they were trained. And they weren't after him. They were after Zoya. In a flash, she moved. The delicate assistant disappeared, replaced by someone else, someone skilled, dangerous. She countered the first attacker, disarming him with brutal efficiency. The second lunged and Tiger reacted, taking him down before he could fire. Within seconds, the fight was over. The men lay motionless. Tiger and Zoya stood there, breathing heavily, their eyes locked. Neither spoke. Neither needed to. The truth had finally revealed itself, and nothing would ever be the same again. Tiger stood in the dimly lit safe house, staring at the classified file in his hands. The truth was undeniable. Zoya wasn't just an assistant. She was an ISI agent, assigned to the same mission from the other side. His mind replayed every moment, the stolen glances, the conversations about duty and freedom, the way she fought in the cafe. It all made sense now. His phone vibrated. Another order from Ra. Eliminate the threat immediately. His chest tightened. Threat? Was that what she was now? A mission to complete? His hands clenched the file, but deep down he already knew. He couldn't do it. A knock at the door. Tiger reached for his gun, muscles tensed. Then a voice. It's me. He hesitated before unlocking it. Zoya slipped inside, her face unreadable. You know, don't you? She asked softly. Tiger exhaled sharply. You lied to me. I did what I had to, she said, her voice calm. Just like you. Silence stretched between them. Then, she stepped closer. Do you believe everything they tell you? His jaw tightened. It doesn't matter what I believe. She shook her head. It does. The weight of her words settled heavily in the room. Tiger wanted to see her as the enemy, as the woman who had betrayed him. But looking into her eyes, all he saw was someone just like him, trapped in a war neither of them chose. I have my orders, he said finally. So do I, she whispered. The meaning was clear. They were both under orders to kill each other. Neither moved. Neither reached for their weapons. Suddenly, the sound of tires screeching outside. A second too late, Tiger realized. Ra and ISI had both tracked them here. Zoya met his gaze. They're not here to talk. Tiger's instincts kicked in. We need to move. The door burst open. Armed agents flooded in, weapons raised. Tiger and Zoya moved as one. Bullets tore through the air as they fought their way out. Years of training, two opposing sides, now working together. They took down agents with precise strikes, dodging gunfire, escaping through the back alley. Adrenaline pumped through Tiger's veins as they ran, weaving through narrow streets, shadows swallowing them whole. But he knew one thing, there was no turning back. Zoya grabbed his hand. Are you with me? For the first time, Tiger made a choice that wasn't about duty. Yes. And just like that, they vanished into the night, leaving behind the only lives they had ever known. Snow-capped mountains stretched endlessly before them as Tiger and Zoya moved through the dense forest, their breaths visible in the cold air. They had been running for weeks, changing identities, crossing borders, staying ahead of those hunting them. But no matter how far they went, danger was never far behind. Zoya crouched by the fire, glancing at him. How long do you think we have before they find us again? Tiger tightened his grip on the stolen satellite phone. Not long. He had intercepted a message. Ra and ISI weren't letting this go. They had been branded traitors. There was no going back. She sighed. We can't keep running forever. He knew she was right. They had spent their entire lives serving their countries, only to become enemies of both. The irony wasn't lost on him. The next morning, they reached a remote village, hoping for a moment of peace. For the first time, Tiger allowed himself to think of a life beyond orders, beyond war. But peace was an illusion. By nightfall, they heard the unmistakable hum of drones overhead. Then came the distant roar of vehicles. They had been found. Zoya's hand slipped into his. No more running. Tiger nodded. They had trained for war, lived in its shadows. If this was the end, they would face it together. The first wave of operatives moved in silently, surrounding the village. Tiger and Zoya struck first, disarming, evading, using the terrain to their advantage. For every agent they took down, more came. It was relentless. A bullet grazed Tiger's arm. He didn't slow. They had fought too hard to die here. But he knew the odds. This was a mission they couldn't win. Then something unexpected happened. Some of the agents hesitated. They had once fought alongside Tiger and Zoya, and now they were ordered to kill them. Doubt flickered in their eyes. A voice came through the comms. "Stand down." The remaining operatives froze. Orders weren't given twice in their world, yet no one moved. Tiger didn't wait. He grabbed Zoya's hand, and in the confusion, they disappeared into the night. Days later, miles away, they sat in silence on a deserted beach, watching the waves crash. No more missions. No more orders. They were ghosts now, lost to the world. Zoya leaned into him. "Do you think they'll ever stop looking for us?" Tiger watched the horizon. "Maybe." She smiled. "And if they don't?" He took her hand. "Then we keep moving." With nothing left behind and the unknown ahead, they walked into the fading light, together.